Tell me more about your identity shift and like how you felt like you're mourning, the old person that you used to be, and how that's a process. There's fear of success, and then there's identity shift that also happens.
Yeah. So I believe that your habits are a reflection of who you believe you are, and that's how it works. Because a lot of my clients, I let them know, like, we have this idea of, okay, I'm going to go to the gym every day this week for an hour. But if you just commit to going for 10 minutes a day for 5 days a week, it changes your identity, because our habits are ultimately a reflection of who we believe we are. So if you go to the gym every day for 10 minutes, you're now a person who goes to the gym every day. And we will always do what we believe about ourselves. So if you start doing that just 10 minutes a day, then you're like, okay, I go to the gym every day. And then you just add on 5 more minutes, and then it's like, oh my gosh, I go to the gym 30 minutes a day. And it
Yeah.
makes all the difference.
Love it. Love it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. You also started not weighing yourself daily. Like I know in 2017 you were weighing daily, and then you stopped doing that.
Mhm.
Yeah, talk about that shift and why you did that, and what do you recommend to people?
So I recommend doing it in the beginning. For me, it was an accountability thing. Like, I needed to learn, okay, whenever I was overeating, I needed to see it, because I would kind of be like, oh, I didn't have that much extra, it's fine. But I knew what the scale was going to say the next morning. So it really, like, helped me stay accountable to see my weight every day. But once I got past that point where I was holding myself accountable, it gets to where it becomes more about the number than
Mhm.
about your daily habits. So, like with my clients, I always tell them, I let them decide if they want to weigh themselves or not. Because if you feel like you're putting all of your goal into a number, then we're going to kind of self-sabotage in that sense, because we're only focused on the number. But the only thing that's going to change the number is changing the habits. So the more you focus on your habits, then you can change the number.
Yeah. 100% agree with that.
Um,
Yeah. What was also interesting to me was your change in how you reacted to the holidays. For example, I know in 2018 you mentioned like having your Memorial Weekend and your Thanksgiving, and you were like, oh, I ate a little bit extra, and your reaction to that versus in 2017 was like completely different. And one felt more like you were debugging, like, oh, I didn't sleep enough, therefore I was tired, and I also didn't have my caffeine, so I needed to pick me up, and therefore this is what happened. Versus like having more willpower. So I'm curious, like, if you want to like speak to that mindset shift, and how to deal with the holidays in that sense.
can you explain more to me what you mean? What, like, because I don't even remember. Can you explain to me more which one you're talking about?
Yeah. So like, I think you had a Thanksgiving break in 2017, and then after that, you were like, oh, I had, I think it was a bag of Doritos, and he said like, oh, I'm gonna have like 3 Doritos, and then you ended up having more, like the whole bag. Um, and then your reaction to that was like, oh, I should have been better. I'm going to
Yeah.
like maybe skip my next Sunday relaxation day kind of thing.
Okay.
And in 2018, when you had extra, your thing was like, I thought about why that happened. And then you kind of had like, oh, I probably didn't sleep enough. And this is why, this was the domino effect kind of thing. And that was like the change that I saw. Um,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That's a big difference. So, like, that's one of the things is, a lot of times if we overeat, we blame ourselves as though we're not strong enough, we're not being mentally strong enough, we don't have the willpower. But that's one of the things I learned, is that whenever we overeat, there's always a reason behind it. So I used to kind of feel like it talked about my character by overeating, but it's actually, there's usually either a physical thing or a mental thing that is causing us to overeat. And so once you understand that, it lets you know what you need to change next time. So I think for that case, it was, if you don't get enough sleep, then your body is looking for that quick energy, and that will happen. And that's what it sounds like happened.
Yeah. And that's,
Yeah.
I couldn't agree with that more. Like, I think like it's so much easier to give up if you feel like it's a character flaw, because
Yeah.
nobody likes to
Yeah.
evidence of that over and over again. But then if you switch to, oh, I just didn't like plan properly enough, I should have slept more, right?
Yeah,
That is like,
yeah, it's a big difference.
yeah, yeah, love it. Awesome. So I think at the end of 2018, you got down to 140 pounds. You like overshot, exceeded expectations of what you thought it would be. That was an amazing video to watch. I think even I was misty-eyed as I was watching it because you were like misty-eyed at the time.
Yeah.
It was great. I felt it because I'd watched all of your videos and I was like, this is awesome that she finally got here. And then in 2019, you know, your goal kind of became more towards like shifting more towards, as you said, less about the weight and more about feeling good in your performance. And then you wanted to get to a flat stomach, which you did. Yeah, so this is more about 2019. It's not over, but you know, we're halfway through all this.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Can you tell me what was the question again? I'm sorry.
Tell me more about your 2019 journey so far, like the 5 months that have happened and getting to that flat stomach, and what
still
you've been
working
doing.
on it. Yeah. So now, honestly, my goals have changed a lot in the sense that I really just want to keep up my habits. So eating every 3 to 4 hours, staying with my exercise, my runs in the morning, and the only other than trying to get a flat stomach, the only other thing that I'm really focusing on right now is I've had a hard time trying to get my weightlifting in. I started doing, I think, like 15 minutes of weight training after my runs. And then I enjoy it so much now that it's hard for me to stick to 15 minutes. So it turns into an hour. And then I've got to like rush to get ready for work. So right now I'm trying to work on getting my weight training in the afternoons and just do my runs in the morning. So I'm trying to work on that schedule. But as far as like weight loss goals, I don't have any big weight loss goals now. It's just part of my routine. It's my everyday life. And I just want to keep going, keep improving, like how you're saying with improving my numbers, running faster, the little things like that are the things that I'm really on.
Yeah, yeah, I love that because I went through a similar transition pretty much.
So
Yeah,
can you tell me what that was?
sorry.
Can you tell me what that was?
Oh, my similar transition was, you know, as you were saying, like instead of focusing on the numbers of my body, it was more like it became more like making it a habit, like making sure I actually get my meals in, as you said, every 3 to 4 hours, making sure I actually get to the gym, and making that like a routine. I think that's mainly where my focus also shifted. Yeah, I totally relate to that. You mentioned, you know, speaking about actually, before we get to that, you mentioned eating every 3 to 4 hours. You know, talk about that. Like, why is that important? And is that something that you recommend for your clients as well?
Yes, definitely. Eating every 3 to 4 hours. Because what happens is if we go a certain amount of time without getting food in our system, our blood sugar drops. And when our blood sugar drops, that's when we start craving a bunch of sugar because our body is naturally going to be like, okay, my blood sugar's down. I need to get it back up. And the thing is once we start eating the carbs, the sugar that's going to get our blood sugar back up, by the time it signals to our brain that we've gotten enough sugar, we've already eaten a whole bag of chips or like 5 slices of pizza, whatever it is. And that just leads us to, with the cycle, the constant after your blood sugar drops, and then it spikes up and then it's going to drop back down. And that's why we go through this, and it'll be like an hour later and you're like, I just ate so much. Like, why do I need like these cookies over here? And so it just takes you through that cycle.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So definitely recommend doing the every 3 to 4 hours.
Yes. Yes. I also recommend that. Yeah, totally. Yeah. And speaking of like, you know, I think we talked about the holidays, like 2017 versus 2018. And then in 2019, you had another one around how you went on vacation, I believe in like Nashville or something. And then how when you came back, it was a process to come back. And I think that's the other thing people, you know, really get down on themselves on, where if they're not like snap back into their routine the second they like touch home base, you know. Yeah. So like more to that.
Yeah, and I think that's like a natural reaction because I felt it like when I first got back, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to get, like, my first instinct was like, okay, I need to do everything on point. And then that was like my red flag. Like, I acknowledged that, and I was like, okay, you're setting yourself up for failure if you're trying to just do everything perfect your first day back. So I was like, okay, just got to make sure I get my breakfast in the first 3 hours that I wake up. And then I wanted to just like make it perfect that first day, but I knew that I had to take my time with it, because that's where it lasts longer when you take it step by step.
Yeah, one change at a time, right? Like even
Yeah.
patient, not just
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, because you stay in your routine. When you break your routine, you've gotta, it's the same thing. You've got to kind of ease back into it again.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
One of the things that you've talked about is um, carb cycling, and how when you first tried it versus the mindset shift that you went through and then you tried it, and why it didn't work the first time, but then it worked better the second time. And yeah, speak more to that.
Yeah, I think that kind of goes to how, like we were just talking about, how a lot of times we want to go from one extreme to the other, where we want to go from like our eating fast food diet to eating like this perfect on paper diet, and it's kind of the same thing, because when I would start the carb cycling, for me it would end up being perfect like for 2 or 3 days, and then my high carb day I was like, oh well, chips are high carb, pizza's high carb, and that would end up being my like free for all day.
Yeah.
So now that I understand it's more balanced, it doesn't have to be like this perfect here and then have this crazy cheat day. Now it's more balanced throughout. So my carb cycling, if I want to have a few cookies with lunch on one of my moderate carb days, it's not like I'm not keeping everything on one end of the spectrum. I'm having balance throughout, and it's made a
Yeah.
big difference to look at it differently like that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the things that I notice with people who have read a lot. It's like, there's like all these fancy things like carb cycling, calorie cycling, like intermittent fasting, and they're trying to like plug all of this into their lives. And as you said, you can use a lot of these things unnecessarily. And also, if you're not prepared to use them, you need to be prepared to use them. There's
Yeah.
this tool. Awesome. Cool. I would love to hear what actually you did the day that you got to that 140 pound at the end of 2018, and then now you're like, even what did you do that day? I'm very curious what happened after you shut down that video.
No, you know what? I really don't remember. I just remember feeling like, I don't think I went and did anything differently that day. I just remember feeling like, because I think I thought I was at like 150, somewhere around there. So to see that number was just like, I was just a little bit awestruck that day. Like, really, that was my weight, but that's, yeah, I think I did everything about normal that day. I think the biggest thing in my head was that I didn't want to self-sabotage, because that's what happens a lot when we weigh ourselves every day. We start inching closer to this number. So I didn't want to focus too much on the number, and immediately I said, okay, I'm just going to keep focusing on my habits, keep doing the same thing each day.
Right, right. I love that. I love that. It's not like, suddenly I can go back to my old lifestyle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to, lose 20 pounds. It's like, okay, I get my pizza now.
Yeah. 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 And I think you've spoken to like the one habit at a time. It's like one habit that you enjoy at a time, like cementing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not, you're like, oh, I want to go back to that. You're like, no, this is the new me. I love this.
Yeah. And I think the beauty in that is that it's like you're cementing each habit. So it's okay, like if you have a slice of pizza, or it's okay if you have some cookies, because you already have your habits in place. It's not going to ruin your habits. Just
Yeah.
having, indulging a little bit here and there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I really love that. And now that you're like a whole, like, I think almost 66, 70 pounds lighter than, where you started, how does it feel to be, this person versus, the person that you were for the longest time? Like, do you sometimes forget that? Like, how does it feel to be in this new body, so to speak?
You know what? I don't think it's really any different than, thinking about who you were 5 years ago and who you are now, because, we all grow and change and evolve. But I can say that my life is a lot different in the sense that I'm constantly working on myself, and I'm not in that kind of rut that I was, because at that point when I got to my highest weight, that's when I was, I didn't feel like myself anymore. So now I'm definitely more comfortable in my own skin.
Yeah. Yeah.
Back then.
Awesome. Sounds good. So that was a really good, I think, colorful journey that you've been through. And I think that will inspire a lot of people. So thank you for sharing that.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
and I wanted to kind of transition to like scenarios that I know a lot of people who are listening to are probably in. And I think they would love to hear, what would you, if you were talking to them, what would you tell them in those scenarios? So the first one is, let's say a person decides to lose weight, right? And this is a very common thing where, even if you're not tracking weight loss, media tells you what to do about weight loss.
Yeah.
And onto whatever tends to be trending in media at the time, which I think currently is keto and intermittent fasting.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to this person?
I would say to try it. I think there are a lot of people who do have success with it. And when I say success, I mean that they're able to keep it lifelong. So I think, it's healthy to try them and see if it's something that fits your lifestyle. But if it doesn't work, if it's not something that you can keep lifelong, then know that the weight will come back afterwards. Because I tried keto and I did lose some weight on it, excuse me, but I love my carbs, so I didn't want to stick with keto for the rest of my life. So the weight plus plenty came back after that one.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's good to try new diets because that's how you find what you like and you don't like. But know that if you do a lot of these low carb diets, but you don't stick with it lifelong, the weight can come back easily.
Oh, yeah, I agree. Now, let's say a person decides to lose weight, and this is the other end of the spectrum. Sometimes is they get a personal trainer, or they join Orange Theory Fitness, or join CrossFit, one of those group class things, and not watching, let's say, their diet a whole lot. They're like, I'm exercising hard. What would you say to this person?
If they had a trainer and they weren't dieting or watching their nutrition, I think it's great to do the exercise and whatever exercise is something that you enjoy and that you're going to stick with lifelong, I think is great. And if you're wanting to lose weight but you're not seeing the results you want, I would recommend looking at your nutrition and taking it, like you're saying, taking it one habit at a time, starting with putting your breakfast, start with your breakfast at a certain macros, 20 to 40 grams of protein and carbs, and gradually implementing each meal as you go along throughout the day for every 3 to 4 hours.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. Now, let's say a person has read up a lot on losing fat and muscle, and they're kind of struggling in all of the details, like they don't know where to start. What would you say to this person?
Ooh, if they don't know where to start, I would say, that was a hard one. I would say probably start with, this is kind of biased because I love the exercise. So I would probably say start with your daily exercise, because for me, that's kind of where I get my mindset right for each day. And I think the mindset is the biggest tool you can have for losing weight. So if you focus on getting that mindset and the exercise in daily, then everything else starts to fall in place.
Awesome. Yeah. Now, let's say there's a person who starts losing weight, but then they get stuck. So they go and try something else. And essentially, a person who doesn't totally trust the process that they're already on. So they every time, and it's inevitable, like you're going to get stuck after a while. So like changing what you're doing. What would you say to this person?
So you're saying more kind of like jumping from diet to diet, not plateauing, but jumping from different diets?
Yeah, yeah.
I would say, I think it could be one of two things. Either maybe sticking with the diet, longer, because sometimes it's not, it's not going to be a linear process. So sometimes it could be just giving the diet another shot, but then it could also just mean that that diet's not for you. That's not, what's going to fit your lifestyle, because we all have different schedules, different things that we enjoy. So it could be either the diet or just letting yourself try the diet again.
Yeah. And what would you say to a person who has plateaued? Like they were making good progress on the diet or on the program that they were on, and then they have plateaued.
So the plateau could be one of two things. It could either be that you've started taking in more calories. You may still be exercising, but if you're taking in more calories, or it could be hurting, your metabolism has dropped. A lot of people, when they do low carb, they end up plateauing because your metabolism drops down.
Right, right. And what would you say in that particular case? Like, what should they do?
This is my clients that do the low carb. They cringe whenever I tell them this, but they have to up their carbs, because carbs helps boost your metabolism. So it doesn't mean, go crazy, but it just means you've got to up your carbs. And I like to do the carb cycling for that. So you do a little bit of lower carbs, and then you got to have those high carb days to spike your metabolism up, because otherwise it either means the only other way you can take your calories down is by exercising longer and eat less. And, we've already only have so many hours in a day. I know a lot of people aren't like, I don't want to work out for 2 hours a day. So
Yeah.
carb cycling, carb cycling is the best, because it's going to help boost your metabolism up.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
What do you say to a person who gets bored with their routine a lot?
I would say keep trying different things, because like I know I tried to do like the videos on, I think it was like P90X or something, and I got bored with that really fast. So, try find what works for you. But I found the thing that for most of us, keeps us really engaged in the exercise is when we focus on those little things, on the progress, doing one extra rep, because it's motivating to see, last week I was using 10 pounds and this week I'm using 15 pounds. I think it's motivating for us to see the progress that we're making.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. Focus on the process. And yeah, I love it. What would you say to someone who is on point when it's their routine? Like let's say Monday to Friday, and then they go completely off track over the weekends because they're social eating. It's the weekend. What would you advise that person?
I would say I would ask them if they're kind of like how we talked about, if they're kind of working off those two extremities, like they have to do this perfect diet, because what's going to happen is when you do let yourself go, it's going to be a lot easier to, after you restrict yourself for that, it's like, okay, I deserve a reward. So I would say if you're doing that, then balance it out and let yourself enjoy little things throughout the week. And then you won't feel such a need to do it later on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love that. Yeah, balance is key. I agree. What do you say to someone who has constant cravings?
If they have constant cravings, it's probably in your diet. It's kind of, I know that a catch 22, but if you're having cravings, it's probably the blood sugar. So if you're eating a lot of carbs, and then a few hours later you're going to have carb cravings because your blood sugar is going to spike, and then it's going to go back down. So that's when having about 20 to 40 grams of carbs per meal really helps a lot, because it'll keep your blood sugar levels more maintainable.
Yeah. Are there other top 1, 2, 3 common struggles that maybe I did not mention over here that you want to call out and put advice out there on it?
Let me think. One of the big things that I've learned is, I know we use the word diet a lot, but I like to teach people how to really think of it more as nutrition, because one of the biggest things is when we think diet, it's something that you go on, so that means you come off of it. So really switching it to more nutrition, so it's like part of your everyday life, because that's what happens is when we think diet, it's something that we're not going to stick with long term.
Right, right, right. Yeah, I totally agree. And let's zoom out and look at some of you've lost a whole bunch of weight. Now, let's say if there's someone else who is has, let's say, 10 pounds to lose versus 50 pounds to lose versus like 100 pounds to lose. Would you say that the start, like what you would recommend to each of those people would be different? And if so, how?
I would really have the same thing for each person, because ultimately each person's going to be different, but it's going to be the same concept or the same plan, because you really want to start with just one habit at a time, like we talked about, because it's hard to stick with anything long term when you do it really drastically. But for each person, I would take a look at their daily diet, their daily nutrition, and their daily exercise, and prioritize what needs to be changed, and just stick with one at a time, so you cement that new habit each time.
Got it. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. And what are, let's say, the top 1 to 3 myths that you see around weight loss or muscle gain that you want to bust?
Ooh, let me see. The myths. Oh, one of the biggest things that I don't want to say bother me, but is junk food or fast food. A lot of people have this like kind of stigma around junk food and weight loss, or fast food and weight loss, and I think that feeds a lot into us wanting to do these two different extremities. But you can still go through a drive-through and lose weight, and you can still go through a drive-through and eat healthier than what than pizza and all of that kind of stuff, because you can still get salads, you can still order burgers, and just have the sauce and take away the bun. So I think that's one of the things that I would like to change, is that kind of stigma around fast food and stuff, because I think there's a shame that comes with, oh yeah, I went through a drive-through today, but it's okay. It's not, I don't think of it as a bad thing. We all do it. We all go through a drive-through, and I don't think it's something that we have to be, shameful of.
Yeah, totally. Cool. Any other myths that you want to bust?
That's it. That one, and the diet versus nutrition.
Okay.
Things, yeah.
Anything that is very much preached about in health and fitness that you feel is a waste of time?
I can't think of anything. There may be things that don't work for me, but I wouldn't say it's a waste of time, because they work for other people. And it's really about, finding what works for each individual.
Right.
Cool. Do you think there's anything that's out there that's a big no, like in diet and fitness?
I think extreme diets, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of myth around extreme diets, and I think, or like, people lose 10 pounds in a month and they feel like it's the diet that's causing that, but then a lot of it is just like water.
Wow, that's such a good one. Yeah. Because I remember seeing that all the time at the grocery store. It would be like, lose 10 pounds in 7 days. And I'm like, yes, like, what is this? And now after understanding, it's not fat, it's just water weight. You're going to gain it right back,
Yeah. Yeah. How has it been to self-coach? You were coaching yourself for 4 years or more, versus now you're coaching other people. Like, how has that? Do you see a difference in like how it felt between doing those two things?
Can I ask you what you mean? Like a difference in?
Yeah, like as in like when you're coaching yourself, did it like do you feel like it's like, yeah, does it feel different in the sense like when you're coaching yourself, like are you more emotional maybe versus when you're coaching someone else? Or like how is it harder? Is it difficult? Is it easier? That kind of thing.
I definitely was like harder on myself. Like, it's like, I think we had mentioned earlier, it's a lot easier when I'm coaching myself to want to make it a thing about who I am as a person. Like, am I strong enough? Are you, disciplined enough? But it's not even that. Like once you understand that there's always a reason behind it, whether it be a mental barrier or a physical thing, like with the blood sugar. So that's what's, that's the big difference, because with myself, it's instinctive to want to make it about who you are as a person. But when it's like coaching clients, it's a lot easier to see it. Like you step back and you're like, no, I know you want to feel like it's about who you are, but it's not. There's always like a reason for it. So it kind of makes you feel a little bit lighter when you understand that there's a reason behind it.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Yeah. And I think for those who are self-coaching themselves, right, I think this is really important to hear that you need to be able to step back if that's what you're doing. And if you're unable to step back, even for a month or something, it might be worthwhile to find someone who can do that step backing for you. It could be even if you don't want to pay anyone, like it could be a friend, it could be a coach. Like I think that's really important. Like Lucy coaches me. Like even I'm a coach myself because I get emotional about my own progress.
Yeah. We want to be like so hard on ourselves.
Yeah. Cool. So Shirlina, we have kind of touched upon it, but you also have an amazing YouTube channel, Shirlina Fit, which I totally recommend. Like if you're someone who is going through this journey yourself and you want something, I think all of us want it when you're going through a journey, like 100% transparent, honest, no filter, no hiding anything. Like what it actually takes to go through the process, like totally go to her channel and like go through all of her videos, I would say. I couldn't recommend it more. Like I think everyone should go through it because it's the truth of what it takes to go through that journey. And she also talks a lot about mindset, which, if you follow this channel, I also believe it's like 80% of the work right there. And she talks a lot about that, but I think, I talk about it in, after having been through it, as Shirlina, you can see all of her journey and her whole mindset transition. Like you can see it happening during, not just after it. So yeah, totally go to her channel. I'm going to drop a link in the description so that you can go subscribe to her channel and check it out. Besides your channel and subscribing to it, is there anything that you would want to offer the people who are listening to this?
Yeah, they can go to my website, shirlinafit.com, if they're interested in understanding like how you're saying, knowing the reasons why we're having the cravings, reasons why we're self-sabotaging. I have my course bundle on my website if they want to check that out as well.
Awesome. We're going to put that in the link below too. I couldn't recommend it more. Like you can literally see how she changed from 2017 to 2018 going through that process. So I'm 100% certain it's going to do wonders for you as well. Awesome. Thank you so much, Shirlina. This was really, really amazing.
Richa, thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute honor. Thank you so much.
Hey there. If you want to know when the next episode drops, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and also hit that bell icon. Until then, keep crushing it.